Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. First, let's start with a notice to the media. Spartanburg County School District 5 has complied with the requirements of the Freedom of Information Act in notification of the media and other interested parties and organizations and posting of the agenda. Next, I need to get an approval of the agenda. Questions or comments? Being that I hear and see none, we can consider the agenda approved. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Mr. Gary.
Thank you so much. Good morning. This is our second Finance Committee meeting to discuss the budget for 26-27 school year. So I'm going to turn over to Mrs. Denini, and she's going to talk about anything that may have changed the last time we met.
Good morning, everyone. I passed out your green folder with some updated budget information. Last time we met, we focused more on expenditures, but the first page in your packet you have is our general fund proposed revenue budget. As you'll see at the top with local revenue, we're projecting that we'll have approximately $6 million more in revenue, with the majority of that coming from our tax levy and fee in lieu of taxes, budgeting additional funds from there. Probably focus in on that state revenue. You see that negative number. For those of you that weren't here last meeting, the state has changed their funding formula a little bit, and so CATE revenue has moved to special revenue. So I've moved some CATE expenses to that fund. So that's showing where that that transfer from EIA is going down a little bit. So that's why we're showing a little bit lower there. We have a slight increase for our Tier 3 property tax reimbursement and a little increase in our manufacturer's depreciation reimbursement and other state revenue. So our state revenue is increasing by a little over $5 million. So that gets us to our $11,117,461 in revenue.
Quick question. I know the FILO revenue, we generally hold that projection fairly conservative because we're not sure. Do you know how much for last year, how much different it was than our projection for that? I can't remember. So
the FILO was we received more FILO. I don't have the exact
understand,
number.
yeah.
It was the revenue exceeded what we had budgeted.
Yeah, there's been times where it's been drastically more, and that's why I was curious.
Right.
We're saying it's only going to be $1 million more than what we have this year. Is it?
And I base it on the prior year revenue. Yeah. So, and even the auditor's office say, be conservative when you're basing off FILO because it is such an unknown and a variable number. So.
Thank you.
I guess, are we starting to see somewhat of a leveling out on the revenue now?
With our assessed values, which I will get to in a minute, our assessed values continue to grow this year. So with the tax levy, we will see, they'll generate additional revenue. All right, on the next 2 pages stapled together is our executive summary of budget changes. These are our increases for expenses. What I've done is I highlighted and put in blue what has changed since our last meeting. That first number you see in blue is the increases of their salary schedules, 3%. We have ROTC instructors that we have to base their salary on MIP from the military. And so I got those numbers in May and made a very small tweak to that number. It was around $5,000 difference. So not a huge change there. And then if you go down to other positions, we had added a special ed assistant at Lyman this year for a student that was in foster care. So we were going to continue that position for this year, so we needed to add it to the budget. That student was foster home was moved to a different foster home in a different county, so she's going to be attending another school. So we removed that, and we're moving that position to the person's not gone. That's what I should say. she's going into another position, but we don't need that position. The other thing that we changed that we had a discussion about, and I'll let Dr. Gary tell you more about that. We've added 4 behavior support assistants, which Dr. Gary can tell you about, but that was a priority, so we made some adjustments. We had 6 full-time custodians and 2 part-times. We reduced that to 4 full-time and kept the 2 part-time. And then we had 3 health room aides. We reduced that to 2 health room aides. And then we eliminated the lead technician, Lenovo admin position.
So I'll go ahead and say it now since you mentioned the behavior support for the elementary school. We just found past couple of years in our elementary schools, especially our lower level elementary students, that it's been a change in probably, I don't know the best way to describe it, a more explosive behavior, those types of things that are hard to handle and move forward if they're not addressed immediately, at least for a temporary, sometimes we move from classroom or other things. I think that this doesn't 100% solve that issue, but it gives us time to continue to evaluate that issue. So this will be an opportunity, almost like a timeout for some of those kids, to give the kid a break, and sometimes just to give the teacher in the classroom a break. So that's what we've done with these positions.
I have a question. There's 4, and we have 8 elementary schools. What's the plan?
That's the only thing we have predicted a question that you guys are going to ask, and we actually got it right. So those other schools have that position either through, like for example, one school used to be an intermediate school, so they already had that position, or they got it through some other resources, so they have it.
So every elementary will have one?
Every elementary will have it, yes.
Will they have a classroom too, or how does that work for school kids from?
I have not counted space, but nobody has said to me they don't want this position. I think for what at our schools that are nearing capacity, we've been very creative on how we use space. So it may not be a traditional 800 square foot classroom, but it's not needed. We're not talking about putting 20 classrooms with kids in. So we're going to make it work.
Thank you for That's
Two quick questions, and I hope I didn't miss you explaining this before. The Scholars Academy increase, right?
The increases have just gone up in the tuition fees based on what we had currently had budgeted and what the actual expense was for that program.
Okay, and that's coming from
USCFC, yes.
Upstate. Okay. And then the summer school, what's driving the increase in the summer school?
With the summer school increase, prior to COVID, we had a very small budget for summer school out of our general fund. The state gives us some money for a summer reading camp at the elementary level. That didn't really always cover the full cost of that, so we had a small budget for that. But during COVID, you remember we received all that ESSER money, so we really ramped up our summer programming and served a lot of students. And the ESSER money went away, and we kept doing it, so we needed to add the budget for that. That mainly is at the middle and high school level where we're seeing that expense, where we weren't seeing that prior to COVID.
It may be a stupid question because I don't know what that, so it's $122,000 increase, but to what number, I guess. You know, it may be a small increase, it may be a very large increase.
It's a fairly significant increase. It about doubled our summer school budget.
We have about the same number of students in summer school. Is there more kids in summer school now?
It's my understanding that we opened it up to more students during ESSER, so there are more students attending. We're having to have more classrooms, but that's more of a curriculum question.
Some of that for the transportation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I want to make sure some of that, we do transport kids to summer school too. And since we don't necessarily have summer school in every campus, sometimes it's very farther that we have to transport kids to. And Dr. Rogers, if I'm missing anything about summer school, by all means, feel free to chime in too.
So we did add, during those COVID years, a GT camp that we continued to feel that was something new, totally. And, prior to COVID, we did not transport students, so, you know, the transportation costs were large. We also have been required by the state to add, first graders, to summer camp this year, and also students with severe special needs and all their supports that they need for those special needs, where, you know, those groups have never been required and really honestly never been invited to summer camp. So those are some changes. They start adding up quickly.
Especially the special services, and sometimes, depending on what that disability is, it may require a teacher assistant. It could be, depending, it could require a shadow or a CNA. I don't know if it requires all this in this particular case, but sometimes with IEPs it does.
What is homeless transportation? Maybe I missed that on the last meeting. What is that?
There's the McKinney-Vento Act that requires us to provide transportations for homeless students. So, for example, I'm a student at Duncan Elementary and I can normally ride the bus. I become homeless and I move in with my mom and I move in with my grandmother that lives down in Reedville. That act requires the district to provide transportation from Reedville back to my home school. It can also require, if I might happen to go to a school and I might move to Greenville and we would be required to provide transportation.
Do we have many of those
Around you.
The number,
and that's not new. It's this
No.
Candy Panto. It's been years.
We use a school bus?
we did find, I believe last year we had one of our bus drivers or a driver dedicated to that because it was the expense. We looked at different options and that was our best option, was to pay a driver to drive them. I believe it's a minibus that drives, so it's not the full-size bus, but there's the other options are very, very, very pricey. There's a contracted service company that's what I'm gonna do when I retire. But it's very expensive. So that was a way, and I think it's better for the student, I think, and then there's consistency there too. But there is that need.
I know for reducing a fleet mechanic, we had a new transportation hub driver.
Right, we had added a fleet mechanic last year, and it was a position we just weren't able to fill. And so we eliminated that position and then, you know, kind of used that to offset the new positions we needed, the new transportation hub.
And not every district has a fleet mechanic. It was something that really could save us money and got some of our buses back on the road, so especially our activity buses fixed and back on the road sooner. But it's a popular position. They know they can go other places and probably make more money, and we just weren't able to keep it. So instead of keeping it in the budget, we put it back in. We'll still need the transportation up though.
Yes.
One bright spot in the non-salary expenditures, our property and casualty insurance did not increase this year, so there's no budget increase for that. Any other questions on the executive summary? All right, we'll move on to the debt service fund. Again, this is our bond, where we pay our bond, make our bond payments. Our revenue is increasing by $2.4 million. You'll notice that we're eliminating that transfer from the general fund where where that tax revenue is coming in, where we won't need that there. We can reserve that for the building fund. Fee in lieu of taxes are going up. And you know, you see those small adjustments, and those adjustments were made on current and last year revenue numbers. You'll notice that we just have the bond that we issued for $15 million back in May of 25 is our only 8% bond issue that's still outstanding.
When we get that 1 million, the 1.2 paid off at the top, are we gonna put it toward the 8%?
It will, when that pays off, that's a special obligation bond, so it's not encumbering any of our 8% debt capacity.
I guess my question was, the money we're putting toward paying that loan off, what's the plan with it?
Well, our debt structure on the bond issues from the referendum are scheduled with that in mind. So we're making on some of those, if you look at the detail, where the payments increase a little bit on those as revenue comes in. And then normally when we do not that we've had anybody attend, but when we do the budget hearing, I do a packet that goes along with that for anybody that might come to that. Just want to share with you some of the things that I include in that packet. This is the next page is the number of students served K-5 through 12th grade. You'll notice for 25-26, we increased by 140 students. That's a 1.3% increase over last year. We're still growing. Average percentage increase over the last 10 years is still 3.3%, which is fairly significant growth.
And remember, these numbers on here don't include K4 because K4 is not funded. Well, these numbers on.
Right.
So when you hear the 11,000 plus, that's without K4 number.
And then the next page is our maximum millage rate increase allowable by law. Currently, among all of the education millage for our district, our operating millage is 162.3 mils, plus our teacher equalization, which makes ours 67.3. But we have to add in those alternative schools, McCarthy, Kessler, Minimum Foundation, and Bernie Anderson. You take the CPI and population growth, so the total percentage growth is 9.24%. So currently, we could, by law, increase our millage by 18.6 mils this year. And then we can also look back 3 years. So we have 96.3 mils available to increase among all of the levying district or levying agencies for maximum. Of course, our plan is not to increase millage this year. And then, in continuing with millage, how we compare with the other districts in the county, our levy for operations, as I said, is 167.3, including that teacher equalization millage. Our debt service is 32.6, so we're at 199.9. The average of the other 6 districts is 237.9 mils, so we're 38 mils under the average. And then the page behind that breaks down and ranks the other districts with their millage.
I wish we could post that
That's
online.
been
An interesting countywide meeting.
Because that, I was gonna say, that is good for us.
Yes. In our operations, we rank 5th, and then in debt millage, we are actually the lowest debt millage.
Do we know where Greenville County is? I mean, I know they
They're talking about.
they raise a bunch every year.
They're supposed to not be raising it this year, but I'm not sure what their millage is. And then on the following page, we have history of growth in our assessed value. These are based on the fall values. So the assessed value of all property in the district was 513 million and increased by 71 million. So that was a 16% increase. you notice the negative number from last year, I think that was just an anomaly from going from a reassessment year to the next year, and because it didn't make sense to me, but.
Yeah, what, a 20%?
Right. Yeah, with the assessed value, so it's, but I think we're getting back to normal. And then again, we have a reassessment year again in 2028.
And sometimes it takes a while before, we can hear about a new company coming to our district. It may take 2 or 3 years before we can actually see that in the books on our assessed value, so we're thinking that's one of the.
Quick question, so we had the referendum to be able to allow us to borrow more money than our percentage of the assessed value. Was that assessed value that percentage was calculated on, was that on the 2025 assessed value, or is that from the previous assessed value?
It was calculated based on the previous assessed value with about, I think it was a 4%. It was either 4% growth or 5% growth. It was a conservative growth.
But we've had 16% growth since then, so.
So,
You know where
this is what you get at. Yes, so when our assessed value increases, our 8%, it's 8% of a larger number, so
Right.
there's more money available in that 8%.
So it's constantly changing.
Yes. Yes. But as a reminder, we want to stay at the 32.6 mils. So we may have that available in 8%, but we need to make sure it's scheduled so that we stay with that 32.6 mils.
Access it, we may have to.
Yeah, we have access. We have access.
Yeah, I guess in my simple mind, I think, well, then we wouldn't have had to have as large of a bond referendum necessarily. If, as you said, the percentage is larger what we could borrow. And then also keeping in mind with where we are with the millage rates, I'm worried that some shoe's going to drop one day, right? Either we have a lot less revenue or our costs are going to go way up. And we are so much farther behind where everyone else's millage rates are. We're going to have to do the big step, and then we're going to be the ones with the black eye while we have to, hey, we haven't, and they won't hear we haven't raised our millage in 20 years while everybody else does.
Well, there will come a time where we have to increase millage. There's no doubt about that. And, you know, if we go back and I pull this sheet out to say, Mrs. Denini, I don't know what it's called, starts, it looks like this, it says good hell on the blue right on it. But it shows how many meals we can possibly go each year if we choose to do so. And then there you can go back and recapture 3 years in the past, correct?
Yes.
So that total is up to 96.3 meals we could increase. Now, there's no way and there's no need for us to increase those types of that many meals. Some districts we talked about are they're giving increases in teacher salary, although they're not increasing millage this year. Some of those districts continually year after year increase the millage. And fortunately, we have not needed to do that. And unfortunately, the main reason being our assessed value has grown at such a rate that we don't have to. Our assessed values continue to grow, but since we're putting some of those operating meals that we have are going into that teacher equalization, which is good because we want to use that to increase teacher salary. But that means that of that number of operating meals we see, all those meals aren't going to the general operation of our district, if that makes sense. So you're right, there's going to be a time that's coming that we're going, and soon. We're not projecting it to come for 26, 27 budget year, but yes, we are going to have to increase operating meals at some point.
Can we forecast that?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be opening 2 new school buildings in a couple of years, and like we prepared for it, but fortunately our assessed values grew so that we could continue to do it with our current millage when we opened the new schools a couple of years ago. As we're moving in, if maybe if assessed values continue to grow, but if we don't see the growth to cover that in our operating, we probably will have to increase millage when we open those schools, because there are so many things, of course, we'll work at moving teachers around and things like that, but we will still have to increase staff for principals, assistant principals, school counselors, custodians, SROs at each of those schools, metal detectors, utilities, all of those costs are in that. So that's somewhere that we probably will look at increasing millage around that time. Depending, I can't say for sure, but it would not surprise me that we would need to do it at that point.
On the one hand, it's hard because since I've been on the board, at least, you see that every year our revenue goes up, and we always gobble that up. Right? Balance our budget, and we gobble it up, and it's not like we're screaming ahead of knowing that revenue. Oh, we need $5 more million. Oh, thank God it came in. It's not. We don't operate that way, right? We just gobble it up. So either we should be trending towards something where we're decreasing millage if we don't need that, and we're able to do that, or if we're headed towards something where we know it's going to be increasing, then I guess I would rather land that softly rather than get to this point and say, oh, we have to change our millage up by 5%, something like that. If it's something where we got to say this is the cost of doing business and we got to go a little bit to get there, I think that's easier for everybody to take. Other than
we're not.
You passed this referendum and now you're going to dip us for more millage.
Okay. So you mentioned two scenarios. Either we need to increase it gradually or we're in a position to decrease it. We are not in a position to decrease it. Now, we added those 4 positions for behavior specialists, but to make this balance, there's some things we had to remove. So it wasn't just that we had this funding and we just added those things. As we add, we had to remove. And when we say increasing our mills, there are districts that don't look at this teacher equalization as an increase to their operating mills. What we've done, we have chosen to absorb those mills over the past few years. So if we don't absorb them, yes, we're in a much better position now and possibly next year. Now, 28 may be a little bit different with the opening of the schools. That's a little bit harder to project. But it's that they're going to teacher equalization. It's not, and no, we're not in a position we can decrease millage.
No, I get that. I just, it's got to stand up to the test of the extremes, one way or the other, right? And so, and trust me, I'm not for raising millage. We'll all get roasted here for raising the millage as soon as it happens, all of us included. I would just also rather, as much like Derek said, let's be projecting this out. And if we know that in 2 years or 3 years or whenever that all this stuff's going to catch up to us, let's at least have a plan for that and start going.
We know that that's going to happen within the time frame you just mentioned. And we do have a plan that we've talked about several times. And we want to fine tune it before we talk about that plan with you guys.
We'll wait for the plan, but the discuss point is, are we looking at, and you don't have to answer this now, but are we looking at a huge jump or is it,
Not huge.
Yeah, well,
No. And I hate to make any guesses because every lead here will hit me.
Yeah.
But my guess is that it will not reach the cap of what we can do for any 1 year. Any 1 year. Like right now, the smallest year, this current year, we could go up just this year, not rolling back. Is that 18.6?
18.6, yes.
And no, it's not near the 18.6 is what we recommend this time.
I get what Scott's saying. If I have a $50,000 tax bill, it's easier to swallow the $5,000 a year. You don't notice it as much as the
One of, to put it in another analogy that we have all been hit with, one of the knocks that we got was, at least I heard, was, of course, District 5 is having to spend a lot of money on new facilities. They didn't do anything for 25 years, right? And so I don't want that to be the same case with where we are with our finances.
So after the history of growth and assessed values, I have the R.D. Anderson proposed budget. It does not require a millage increase. We confirmed that this week. We do approve at the board meeting in June the R.D. Anderson budget, the McCarthy-Kessler budget, and the alternative school budget. I haven't gotten those budgets yet, but I have gotten the R.D. Anderson and then the Master Skills Center. They're increasing the R.D. Anderson by $544,483. and the Master Skills Center by just $88,636.
And Mr. Clement, who's on that board, we meet next week, I believe, so you will see those numbers here.
And then, like I said, I haven't received the McCarthy Kessler and the alternative school budgets yet. I would recommend meeting for that. Again, we'll definitely have Dr. Gary share those when we receive those so that you'll have time to look at them before that board meeting in June. The Senate has finished. They had signed guide yesterday, day before yesterday. So hopefully we'll get the final projections in. I don't anticipate anything changing significantly on the revenue, so I think we're in a pretty good position. There might be a few tweaks, but hopefully the projections come in as expected.
Any other questions?
I appreciate everybody's time. I will call this meeting to end at 8:30. Thank you.